Thank you, Chris, and thank you for giving Covanta the opportunity to sponsor this event. It's become commonplace to say that we live in interesting and uncertain times, but for those of us involved in the procurement and development of new infrastructure for waste treatment, those sentiments are certainly true. The credit crunch, the recession, and inevitable future constraints on public spending have raised serious questions about how infrastructure will be funded in the future. The general election is in full swing, but if the polls are suggesting a hung parliament are correct, we face political as well as financial uncertainty. I want to talk today about the changing imperatives for the funding of waste projects, but before I get into that, I'd like to say a few words about our company to put my comments in context. As many of you might know, Covanta is a U.S.-based company and the world's largest specialist energy from waste firm. We own and operate 45 energy from waste facilities worldwide, treating around 18 million tons of waste every year. That's equivalent to about 8% of the overall U.S. market, or 2/3 of the U.K.'s MSW. We produce in excess of 9 million megawatt hours of low-carbon electricity a year, which is enough to meet the household energy demands of both Birmingham and Leeds. So what's Covanta doing in the UK? We came to the United Kingdom market at the end of 2005, encouraged by increasingly attractive fiscal, regulatory, and policy environment. That included a strong mandatory landfill diversion target and associated fiscal drivers, including the landfill tax, and favorable planning system reforms. Broadly, our strategy is to seek opportunities to develop large-scale strategic facilities, providing capacity to handle both local authority residual waste and commercial and industrial waste. Typically, we'd be looking at plants sized between 350,000 tons a year and 750,000 tons a year. Currently, we're bidding on 8 local procurements, and I expect over the next 18 months we'll be involved in about 8 more. As a company, we expect to invest around £2 billion in the UK, and in the longer term, we see the UK market as providing a springboard for Covanta to enter the wider European marketplace, especially Eastern Europe. So what does the investment environment look like in the coming years? Recently, DEFRA's Waste PFI program has been a major driver in developing new waste infrastructure. But as I said at the outset, we are now in far more uncertain times. The global banking crisis, recession, and record levels of public spending and the collapse of government revenues place unprecedented constraint on future public spending. We have already seen that increasingly difficult financial markets have affected the delivery of waste PFI programs, with several authorities, including North Yorkshire, Greater Manchester, Cumbria, and Wakefield, all admitting that this has been a significant factor in the delay of their signing of contracts. Last year, Norfolk abandoned its procurement, stating that the fiscal environment had rendered their preferred option of mechanical biological treatment followed by energy recovery as unaffordable. Dorset also went back to the drawing board. Given political commitments to safeguard spending in priority areas like health and education, other areas of spending will come under intense pressure. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has forecast that departments like DEFRA could face real-term spending reductions of as much as 25% over the next 4 years. And this will have profound consequences for major public sector waste procurement projects. In England and Wales, local authorities have already spent around £4.5 billion a year on waste management, which is roughly equivalent to £1 in every 3 raised through council tax. In circumstances where the total funding pot is likely to decline, questions will be asked about whether we can afford such levels of expenditure, especially if they result in cuts to other services. Indeed, these questions are already being asked. England's best performing council in terms of recycling is East Lindsey, but the council's priorities are moving away from increasing its recycling rate towards delivering greater value for money. This acceptance that priorities must change is shared at the national level. For example, Philip Ward, the Director for Local Government Services at RAP, emphasized recently the need to achieve more for less. The message seems clear. Future waste procurements will focus as much, if not more, on affordability and value for money as the pursuit of ever higher targets. And this may be no bad thing. There is a plausible argument to be made that the easy availability of finance in previous years has led to some bad choices being made, with sometimes complex and expensive solutions being chosen ahead of simpler, cheaper ones for political reasons. So how can affordability and value for money be achieved in the future while also securing the best possible environmental outcomes? The most fundamental requirement is for realism. The landfill directive tells us exactly what we need to do. By 2020, we can send to landfill at most 35% of the amount of waste that was being sent in the mid-1990s. In the last few years, we have made much progress towards this, largely and rightly by increasing recycling levels. But there are practical, environmental, and fiscal limits to how far this can be taken. We need urgently to address the waste that is left over after recycling. Sadly, though, much of the last decade has been spent on the quest for the Holy Grail in the form of new and advanced technologies, including pyrolysis, gasification, and anaerobic digestion, to name but a few. Such technologies can play a part, but to date they have not been proven on a scale sufficient to show the difference needed in meeting the targets. On a cost per ton basis, they remain expensive. The alternative, of course, is to look at the potential of a tried and true tested technologies. Conventional thermal treatment is proven and cost effective. I am heartened that in the last couple of years this technology has come more into focus, but we must not let the sustained negativism of some campaign groups affect the political judgments that have to be made in the future. Next, we look at the benefits of achieving scale economies. Research published by DEFRA in 2006 unsurprisingly found that for all waste technologies, substantial scale economies exist. For energy from waste, the research conducted showed that the economics of development and operation were optimized at capacities of around 400,000 tons per year and above. Let's turn that into numbers. Developing a plant of the capacity of 200,000 tons and provide it on an exclusive basis to meet the needs of a single authority will result in gate fees of around 100 pounds per ton of waste. If the plant were sized at 600,000 tons, that would be the gate fee, and the same council takes just 1/3 of the plant, or the same 200,000 tons. The gate fee to the council would be around 50 pounds per ton. That's a potential savings of about 10 million pounds a year, which is equivalent to the current average salary rates of 320 teachers or 625 care assistants. With future spending constraints putting pressure on jobs, this is more than significant. Obviously, very few waste authorities need facilities of that scale to handle their residual municipal waste alone. Therefore, in order to create opportunities to develop the optimum scale, it'll be necessary for authorities to work together through joint working arrangements. It'll also be important for future local authority procurements to consider how locally arising commercial and industrial waste can be accommodated alongside municipal waste. We need to see schemes conceived both on wider geographic basis and also as joint municipal merchant projects. I am conscious that this does raise some specific issues in the context of waste PFI and public procurements. Obviously, if we are looking at facilities to serve both municipal and merchant needs, we may have catchment areas that are well beyond the single local authority boundaries. This presents some additional challenges, including heightened planning risk. It's unlikely that a local authority could retain the asset, and some legal issues regarding potential termination scenarios. But none of these are insurmountable, and I would argue that the benefits will far outweigh the disbenefits over the lifetime of the contract.